Some NBA players didn't retire. They disappeared. Not because they fell off, but because the league made sure you never saw them again. This is Game Tape Central, and these are the NBA players blacklisted by the sport they gave everything to. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. In 1996, the NBA suspended Mahmoud Rauf because he refused to stand for the national anthem. He wasn't violent. He wasn't cheating. He was simply suspended because he sat in silence, refusing to sing the national anthem, and that alone was enough to get him blacklisted from the league. But here's the problem. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf wasn't a random role player in the NBA. He was a 6'1" lightning bolt, dropping 19 points per game for the Nuggets, cooking defenses off the dribble, and hitting free throws at a higher rate than Steve Nash or Steph Curry ever did in their careers. He was basically Steph before Steph. In fact, to date, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf still has the third highest single-season free throw percentage in NBA history. But none of that mattered in March 1996. Before a game against the Chicago Bulls, where Rauf once again refused to stand for the national anthem, when asked why, he gave a calm, honest answer.
It's also a symbol of oppression, of tyranny.
The flag is a symbol of oppression. I don't stand for oppression. Those two statements changed the course of his life forever. He wasn't trying to be a rebel. He wasn't trying to trend. He was just a devout Muslim who believed in his faith and his conscience, that standing for a country that bombed Muslim nations just didn't sit right with him.
Criticize those for standing, so don't criticize me for sitting. This is a belief, and I won't compromise my beliefs.
But this was the NBA in the 90s. Everything was off limits. And David Stern, who had never suspended a player for protesting, suddenly handed Rauf a ban. And just like that, the league sent a message. Stand up or get out. Even after the suspension was lifted, something changed. The Denver Nuggets, whom Rauf had led in scoring all season, traded him immediately. He landed in Sacramento, where his minutes vanished, from 35 minutes a night to barely seeing the floor, from team leader to bench warmer. The next season, no team signed him. The one after that, still nothing. He was 29 years old, in his prime, still dropping 30 in overseas games. But in the NBA, he was done. Not because he wasn't good enough, but because he wouldn't conform to the norm of the league. Years later, after Colin Kaepernick kneeled, Rauf's story resurfaced, but back then he was alone. Even today, most fans don't know he inspired players like Kaepernick to speak out. He didn't just lose a job, he lost a legacy. But here's the part they really don't want you to know. He never once apologized, never once stood, and to this day he says, while Mahmoud was punished for what he stood for, this next guy, he was banned for crossing a line the league doesn't ever forgive, not even once. Jontay Porter. Jontay Porter is the younger brother of Michael Porter Jr. During his NBA days, he was a role player at best, a backup big man for the Raptors, who averaged under 5 points and barely cracked 13 minutes per game. But what he lacked in stats, he made up for in something far more dangerous: information. While he was on the court, he wasn't just thinking about screens, rotations, or weak side help. He was thinking about spreads, player props, betting lines, the kind of numbers you don't track unless you're putting money on the game. And the league had the receipts, betting patterns, connections, data trails, all of it. The league's investigation found that prior to the Raptors game on March 20th in 2024, Porter disclosed confidential information about his own health status to an individual he knew to be an NBA bettor. Another individual with whom Porter associated, knew to be an NBA bettor, subsequently placed an $80,000 parlay proposition bet with DraftKings to win $1.1 million, wagering that Porter would underperform on the March 20th game. But it gets worse. According to the league's investigation, Porter faked injuries to manipulate his own player props. One time, they found he left the game early after telling a known bettor he was going to do it, allowing the person to place a large wager on his unders. The bet hit, everyone got paid, except Porter. He got caught, and that's when the dominoes started falling. In April 2024, the league banned Jontay Porter for life, the harshest punishment they can hand out, after discovering he had bet on NBA games, including games he played in, which basically messes with the integrity of the game. The NBA has always had a zero-tolerance stance on gambling by players. This wasn't a suspension. This was a permanent ban. something we haven't seen since the days of guys like Jack Molinas in the 1950s. Jontay Porter went from bench big to blacklisted. He made the game feel rigged, and in the league's eyes, that's unforgettable. At just 24 years old, his career was over. Jontay Porter had the NBA world in his hands and lost it because of a cardinal sin. But the next guy, despite having more points than Kobe and Jordan combined, the NBA never got a single minute of it because of a rule they created before him. Oscar Schmidt. Imagine dropping 49 points on Team USA in the Olympic finals, and the NBA still says, yeah, we don't want it. That was the story of Oscar Schmidt, who despite never playing a second in the NBA, still scored more professional basketball points than Jordan, Kobe, Wilt, Kareem, and any other NBA player except LeBron James. Oscar Schmidt isn't just a legend, he's the second highest scoring professional basketball player of all time with over 49,000 career points. This man is widely considered the greatest basketball player to never touch the league, and he's also one of the few who chose to stay out because of a rule the NBA had. He's Brazil's all-time top scorer and the all-time top scorer in the Olympics with 1,000 plus points. He even torched Team USA in the 1987 Pan American Games final, scoring 46 points in the final on American soil. But when the NBA came calling, he said no. But it wasn't because he didn't want to play, but because at the time the NBA had a rule. If you played in the league, you couldn't represent your country in international competitions. And for Oscar, patriotism came first. So, he turned down the NBA and the multi-million-dollar contract offer from the New Jersey Nets so he could keep playing for Brazil.
Schmidt gives Brazil the lead with a three-pointer.
The NBA didn't blacklist Oscar Schmidt in the traditional sense. They just pretended he didn't exist. The NBA wouldn't bend the rules, not even for a great scorer like himself. By the time FIBA changed the rules in 1992 and the Dream Team was born, Oscar was in his mid-30s, still elite, but past his NBA window. So when the Lakers and Miami Heat came calling again, he declined because he was loving his legend status outside of America. Oscar Schmidt is still to this day the highest scoring professional basketball player in history, and the NBA never got a single point of it. Craig Hodges. If turning down the league is rare, how about getting kicked out after you've already won a ring? That's exactly what happened to Craig Hodges, an NBA champion, a three-point god, and the man who outshot Larry Bird at his peak. Yet, somehow, he never played another game after the 1992 season, and the reason why had nothing to do with basketball. Craig Hodges won 2 NBA titles with the Chicago Bulls in 1991 and 1992. He was a 3-time three-point contest champion and not just a regular winner. He hit 19 straight shots in one of them. To this day, nobody's touched that. But in 1992, everything changed. When the Bulls visited the White House after winning the finals, Hodges showed up in a dashiki and handed President George H.W. Bush a letter criticizing the U.S. government's treatment of Black Americans. 2 months later, he was gone. Despite being a 10-year veteran and a real asset to any NBA team that wanted to win, no team would sign him. Not even for training camp, not even on a 10-day. At that time, he was 31, in elite shape, shooting career-high percentages. But all these didn't matter as he was completely iced out of the league. Was he officially banned? No, but when you're a 2-time champion, one of the best shooters in the league, and suddenly nobody will return your agent's calls, that's not a coincidence, that's a blacklist. Craig Hodges was blackballed and completely avoided by every single person in the league for fighting for what he believed in. And to this day, no one in the NBA has ever publicly explained why. But while Craig was punished for his activism, the next guy banished for reasons the NBA still refuses to speak on at all. O.J. Mayo. O.J. Mayo was a player who, in high school, was called the next LeBron. He was drafted number 3 overall pick in 2008. And in his rookie year alone, he averaged 18.5 points per game, played all 82 games, and finished second in Rookie of the Year voting behind Derrick Rose. He was a certified talent, smooth jumper, big game presence, could create his own shot, and he could play both guard spots, score from anywhere, and handle the ball like a veteran. And for a while, it looked like the hype might actually be real. He wasn't LeBron, but O.J. Mayo had carved out a respectable career, Steady numbers, starter minutes, and flashes of what once made him the #1 high school player in America. But by 2016, he vanished. Not gradually, not quietly. He was suddenly gone because the NBA hit him with one of the most severe penalties in the rulebook, a 2-year ban for violating the league's anti-drug policy. This wasn't your typical suspension. It was a full-on disqualification. No contract, no roster, no pathway back, at least not until July 1st, 2018. But what made it even messier? The league never revealed what drug had triggered the ban. Speculation spread fast that he used cocaine, heroin, or steroids. But Mayo later spoke out. He said it wasn't anything like that. He claimed it was a prescription painkiller and that he messed up, took the wrong thing, paid the price, and got crushed by the system. To make matters worse, he wasn't even under contract at the time. His deal with the Milwaukee Bucks had already expired after a forgettable season where he played just 41 games, averaged under 8 points, and missed the end of the year due to a broken ankle from falling down the stairs. In 2018, he applied for reinstatement. He got it, but no NBA team picked up the phone. No second chances, no redemption arc. Since then, Mayo has played overseas in China, Taiwan, Puerto Rico, and even Egypt, still chasing the game he once had in his hands. But the NBA, that chapter is closed. But at least Mayo got his moment. He played, he scored, he made a name. The next guy, he never even got the chance. Jeremy Tyler. Imagine being so good in high school that the NBA starts watching you before you even finish junior year. Such was the story of Jeremy Tyler, who at the time was a 6'10" wonder kid. He was strong, mobile, agile, skilled for his size. He was projected to be a lottery pick, but Tyler didn't want to wait. In 2009, at just 17 years old, he did something no other American prospect had ever done. He skipped his senior year out of high school, skipped college, and went pro overseas. He signed with a team in Israel, hoping the international game would fast-track his path to the NBA. But instead, it wrecked his development. He barely played, struggled with the language, the culture, and even his own confidence. And after just 10 games, he left Israel entirely. He tried again the next season in Japan and played better, but the damage was already done. Scouts were no longer sold. He went from potential top 5 pick to a second-round flyer in the 2011 NBA draft. The Golden State Warriors picked him at number 39, and in his rookie year, he actually showed promise, starting 23 games, putting up some solid double-doubles. But behind the scenes, he was raw, unpolished, still learning how to be a pro, and teams weren't patient. He bounced between 4 NBA teams in 3 years, plus multiple stints in the G League. And by the time he turned 23, most franchises had already moved on, and every team avoided him like a plague. He kept chasing it, summer league, training camps, overseas again, but the window never reopened. He had the physical gifts, but he skipped all the steps that would have taught him how to use them, so the league forgot him totally. If you've made it this far, you're clearly built differently. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We got even crazier NBA stories coming up. Tyreke Evans. In his rookie season, he averaged over 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists per game, something only 4 players in NBA history had done before: LeBron, MJ, Oscar Robertson, and Tyreke. That's how good he was. He won Rookie of the Year in 2010, beating out Steph Curry and James Harden. And for a while, it looked like Sacramento had its franchise star. But the years went on, and the flashes got fewer. He bounced from Sacramento to New Orleans, back to Sacramento, then Memphis, and finally Indiana. Then suddenly, he was gone. In May 2019, the NBA announced Tyreke Evans had been dismissed and disqualified from the league for violating its anti-drug program.
The league just announced that Tyreke Evans has been dismissed from the NBA for violating the anti-drug policy.
The league never revealed what substance triggered the ban, but this wasn't a suspension. It was a full banishment. 2 years later, no team offered him anything, even as much as a workout. Nothing. Evans later said the whole thing was a wake-up call. He'd been struggling with off-court issues for years, and the league finally reached its limit. He served his time. He reapplied for reinstatement. Got it. But by then, he was in his 30s, and no team wanted to take the risk. From Rookie of the Year to completely exiled, a player once compared to LeBron James, gone without even a farewell tour. Richard Dumas. Before he even stepped on an NBA court, he was already in trouble. Richard Dumas had all the tools to be truly great. At 6'7", he had a smooth jumper, ridiculous hops, and he looked like the next big thing. So he was drafted by the Phoenix Suns in 1991. Some scouts even said he was the most talented player in his draft class, but he never played a single minute in his rookie season because he got suspended before it ever started. The reason? Violating the NBA's substance abuse policy. Dumas entered rehab, missed the entire 91-92 season, and just like that, his career was already off track. But that wasn't when it became over for him, because he finally debuted the next year. He balled out. Averaged 15.8 points per game, shot over 50% from the field, helped the Suns reach the NBA Finals alongside Charles Barkley. For a while, he looked like he was finally back, but the demons never left. In 1995, Dumas was suspended again, this time indefinitely, for failing another drug test. He bounced around after that, CBA, overseas stints, and eventually faded out of pro basketball entirely. But his story didn't end there. In 2013, nearly 2 decades after his NBA days, Dumas was arrested for stealing over $800 worth of merchandise while working at a security job. A sad turn for someone who once had everything: talent, opportunity, even the backing of a title-contending team. But addiction doesn't care about potential. It took his NBA dream and never gave it back. Chris Anderson. By 2006, the Birdman had carved out a role for himself in the league. He was known for his high-flying blocks, rim-rattling dunks, and all. But that same year, everything came crashing down because the NBA didn't just suspend him, they kicked him out. The wording was clear: indefinite ban, minimum of 2 years, and it was once again for a violation of the league's drug policy on drugs of abuse. And just like that, Anderson was out. But unlike most who vanish after a ban, Anderson fought his way back. During his ban, he entered rehab, stayed clean, met every requirement for reinstatement, and in 2008, 2 years later, he was officially back in the NBA. Most players would have just fizzled out, but not Birdman. In fact, his real career hadn't even started yet. He became a fan favorite in Denver, then in Miami. He thrived as a key bench piece for LeBron's Heat. Together, they won an NBA championship in 2013. The league once shut the door on him, but Chris Anderson became the first player to push it back open on the second chance he got. But not everyone gets a second chance, and sometimes it's not the players who get blacklisted. Sometimes the league turns on one of its own. Donald Sterling. For 33 years, Donald Sterling owned the Los Angeles Clippers, but in 2014, the NBA made history. For the first time ever, a team owner was banned for life. It wasn't because of mismanagement or bad trades, even though he was guilty of those too. It was because of who he was when the cameras weren't rolling. In April 2014, TMZ released a recording. Sterling, in a private phone call, was heard making blatantly racist comments, telling his girlfriend not to bring black people to Clippers games, including his racist comments about basketball legend Magic Johnson.
Yeah, it bothers me a lot that you want to broadcast that you're associating with black people.
The comments unleashed a torrent of condemnations from celebrities and politicians, including President Obama, as well as an intense focus on Sterling and his past of manipulation and corruption. The league had heard whispers for years of players complaining of Donald Sterling's attitude, but now there was proof. And within days, Commissioner Adam Silver, just 3 months into his new job, dropped the hammer. Sterling was fined $2.5 million, banned for life from ever participating in the NBA, and forced to sell the Clippers. It was a turning point for the league, a message to every player, every coach, every executive. This is not who we are anymore. And what made it even more surreal was that it happened during the playoffs. The Clippers were contenders, but suddenly, that controversy threw them out of contention, as they were playing through a scandal that changed the NBA forever. Donald Sterling didn't just lose his team, he lost his legacy. But unlike the players on this list, he's not fighting to come back, because this time, the door is locked for good. But not every name on this list was a superstar or even a player. Some just got too close to the league and were never allowed back. That takes us to the last person on the list, Tim Donaghy. Tim Donaghy was an NBA referee, and for 13 seasons, he officiated hundreds of games, including playoffs. But in 2007, the FBI launched an investigation that shocked the entire sports world. Turns out, Tim Donaghy had been betting on NBA games he officiated. He was calling fouls while covering spreads, manipulating outcomes for cash. The scandal forced the NBA to go into full damage control. Donaghy resigned, pleaded guilty, and served 15 months in prison. Since then, he's been completely erased from league history. No post-prison comeback, no reconciliation, just silence. These stories are far from over. Some players were banned, others were just too real for the league to handle. And if you thought this was wild, wait till you see the rules the NBA made just to stop LeBron James, James Harden, and some of your favorite players. Click here to watch that next. This is Game Tape Central, and these are the stories they never wanted you to hear. Subscribe for more and leave a comment on your thoughts or videos you'd like us to make. We got you. See you in a sec.